we're going to ask what I refer to as 5 supremely important questions. And we're going to fly over these, and then you're going to work on the first of them, and that's when we'll tie into the break that's coming up here. But the point is this. What I learned from doing too much windshield time and watching salespeople was if they don't find out from the prospect what the prospect intends to accomplish in that first conversation or in that first meeting, if the salesperson doesn't get that on the table, they surrender an incredible amount of rapport that's available between them and the prospect. And I watch this go down hundreds of times where the salesperson goes in and they think because we only got a few minutes, I got to talk fast, I got to cover a lot of ground, and I got to pitch this sucker hard and then ask closing questions. Or maybe I'm just doing a fact finder. Yeah, right, but there's a close in there somewhere. And so you can call it what you want. But what we've noticed is if you have a plan and going in, you're going to ask these 5 questions. And most of the time, you only got to ask 2 or 3 of them. You don't use all 5, and you'll accomplish your purposes. But for the more difficult prospect, you will need all 5 of them. So I want to take you through them and what they are. And so I developed this, and I began to teach it to my lab rats, and they came back saying, this is really working. And the heavy hitters are saying, we love this because it focuses that business owner. It causes that business owner to get in, locked in with me on the right topics, and then we have a more productive discussion. Even if we find out this isn't going anywhere, I know it by the end of the first call. Okay? And so I went on a trip to the Southeast. I was getting ready to do a national sales meeting for a company. One of the things I do before I do that meeting is I ask to see 3 or 4 typical calls from a middle-of-the-road salesperson. I don't want to go out with a superstar because that's usually a not duplicatable process. I want to go out with somebody that's in the middle of the pack. So my customers don't listen to me any better than yours, so they sent me out with the top guy. Okay. So we fly to the southeastern United States, and he's got an appointment with the administrator of a large healthcare facility. And so we meet in the hotel the night before. And I lay out the agenda for him, and we practice the 5 questions. And I said, I want you to ask these 5 questions. And we may not need all of them, and it turned out we didn't, but we had practiced them, and he did it right. And so the first question that we want to ask the prospect is, what's most important to you in this meeting? What is it you want to make sure we accomplish? Okay? Now, so we set up the first question, and you've got the model of this in your handout, but essentially it's thanks for taking the time to meet with me. Thanks for taking the time to have this conversation. I want to make sure we use our time to address the things that are most important to you. In addition to covering what we talked about on the telephone that caused us to set this appointment, what else do you want to make sure we cover in our time together, right? So we connected back to the business purposes that caused this meeting to happen. You got to let him know that you're going to do that. But I also want to know if he's got anything else on his mind. So I'm watching. This is the CEO of a significant organization. And I hit the clock on my watch when he asked the question, and the CEO talked for 11 minutes and 45 seconds. Out of a 40-minute call about what was important to him in this meeting. It was beautiful. See, here's what I want to have you understand. When you're in a meeting with a prospect, the perfect noise ratio is 80% of the time the prospect's talking, 20% of the time salesperson's talking. When you come out of a meeting with a prospect and you found that you talked more than 20% of the time, you got to understand something. They were running the call, not you. The one who's running the call is not the one doing the talking. The one who's running the call is the one who's making the other person talk. I can't make them talk with declarative sentences. They talk in response to my questions. So what do you want to make sure we cover in a meeting? The guy says, I got to make sure we don't fail again. Now I'm going to teach you in a few minutes. There's only 3 possible answers to any question you ever ask anybody, so you might as well think ahead of that and know what they are. So, what kind of word is fail? That's fat, and it's painful. That's good, right? So my guy, we had practiced this in the hotel, and he had the presence of mind to use the safest response in sales, which is, I'm not sure I understand when you say fail. Tell me more. The guy says, we've tried to make this change twice before and we failed, and it'll be strike 3 for yours truly if it fails again. So we can't fail. What do you think caused it? And the guy listed our DV as the things that weren't present in the first 2 attempts. So what do you think the next question was? So what adjustments are you going to make in your vendor selection to make sure that those things are more important than price? What's the role of a salesperson? Understand the decision process, and if necessary, alter it. Okay? When the prospect's telling you what's important to them, don't interrupt them. I had to choke this guy to get him to keep his mouth shut. I literally kicked him. We were sitting under a table. You know, our legs were under a table. He couldn't wait to tell the guy all the ways we were going to help him avoid that problem. That's a presentation to an unqualified prospect. That'll get you to think it over. And then they're going shopping because they now know you can fix the problem, and they probably know your price, and therefore they're going to come back later and say, gee, you're really expensive. So premature presentations kill a lot of sales. So don't interrupt him, and he did interrupt him. We're on our way back to the airport. He's so proud of himself because we accomplished all our objectives. But he interrupted the guy, and the guy leaned forward and glared at him when he did it, and he did it twice. And we're driving back to the airport, and he says, how'd I do? I says, I'll give you a 6 out of 10. 6? We accomplished all our objectives. Yeah, and you really irritated the guy 2 times. Did you notice him leaning forward and glaring at you? Oh my God, I interrupted him when he was telling me his pain. Thank you. And you irritated him. You recovered, but it was unnecessary. You couldn't wait to tell him how you could fix a problem he just gave you. He hadn't told you yet how strong his commitment was to spending enough money to fix it. Therefore, it was a premature presentation. Just because they got pain doesn't mean they're going to do business with you.